Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as well as the bell icon to get notified whenever we drop an episode. Also, don't forget to comment while you're listening to this show or watching the show. Anything you want to talk about, drop it in the comments. It's season 4. Once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden. Pete, we're coming up on Cinco de Mayo. It's kind of in a weird spot because it's like right when we do drop an episode, or it's on Sunday, which is when we record, so we could talk about it then, but it would already have been passed. I know everybody likes to go out for Cinco, but if you're staying in for Cinco and doing celebrating at home, make sure you celebrate with Two Men in a Garden salsa. It's local, it tastes amazing, and really anybody in your household is going to find a flavor that suits their preference when it comes to salsa. I don't know what else you can say about this stuff. It's again, small number of ingredients, local. You can get their products at any local grocery store or online at twomeninagarden.com. Which, if you're particular about your salsa, that's where you want to go. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, we've got some commitments to talk about. And it feels like I looked at the notes and I said, wait a minute, we didn't talk about Isaiah Swope's commitment last week? Like this happened 2 weeks ago, dude.
I had the same feeling. Like when I opened the notes and I was getting some updates in this morning, it was like, you got to be kidding me. Like I guess by that time we kind of knew it was happening, but it hadn't been made official yet. And of course it was first thing on Monday. So Monday is when I really put in most of the notes for him. And it feels so long ago. You're right. We started the week kind of a continuation of last week, right? With like commitments coming in like every day. Things really slowed down at the end of the week. And then we got some more news on Sunday. So the roster's really coming together. Things are moving quickly. We have plenty to talk about.
We do. And it's exciting because the people that did not ask me about the Billikens this year are all of a sudden asking me again about the Billikens, or, oh, I heard we got cream. It sounds like the Billikens are going to have a big year this year. Dude, it is fun to be a Billiken fan again, and this team hasn't even hit the court.
It's really exciting. It's really exciting. And we're going to take a look at kind of what we've got for the roster so far. We're going to look at what we've got, we might think we have left that we still need. You're right. It's an exciting time. It's a fun time. My parents were just in visiting this weekend. They were talking about it. They've made note of those billboards. My dad said he's seen at least 3 different billboards around town. So it's, the full marketing blitz is on already. It's a great time to be a Billiken.
Isaiah Swope, junior guard from Indiana State. Obviously, we knew about him and his visit. He was visiting with Robbie Avila, but he announced his commitment on Monday, the 22nd, which was his birthday. Happy birthday. By the way, sports Twitter accounts really got to be careful, or they just turn into like glorified birthday wishing accounts.
I've wondered about that. I mean, if you have a big enough team, like if you're a college football team, you're going to have like multiple guys on every day. I mean, it's so many people involved with the program. So you're right. There's maybe every other birthday they call out or something.
Well, let's focus on Isaiah Swope's birthday and when he announced his commitment.
Yeah, so that was Monday the 22nd, as you said, and this is an exciting one, Zach. This is the other guy from the Indiana State starting 5 that SLU is going to have now. He's a guard. He started his career with Southern Indiana in their last season in D2, and his sophomore year there was their first season at the D1 level. So if you look up his stats and you only see 2 seasons listed, or if you're wondering why he's going to be a senior this fall, that's why. So he has played 3 collegiate seasons already. He's small. He's only about 5'10", 170, but he's a really active, effective player. He's tough. He's quick. He moves well on and off the ball. Schertz said his quickness and shooting are elite at every level, and he's a, quote, savage competitor and a winner, which I love. Zach, last season at Indiana State, he averaged just under 16 points a game, 15.9. He was first in the Valley and tied for fourth in the nation in three-pointers made with 113. And that's something you love to see. You know, we were told last year that we might see 33-point attempts again. Saw nothing close to that. But now it kind of seems like we actually might see something closer to that this year, right?
Yeah, I am over the moon that we got two of the guys. I think you and I both agreed that, Schertz was obviously who we wanted, but
Yeah.
and we would have been happy with the direction of the program if that was just it. But I think both of us agreed that I think two was the right number to kind of go at, and we got both of them, and I think this is exactly where we thought we could be going into uh, building the rest of the roster.
That's right. And we had said all along, right? Like hope for all five of them, but like
Sure.
maybe wish for all five because I think they all five would translate, but it's not always realistic because as soon as their names hit the portal, it's an open market. And you saw where those other guys went, right? Like they're going to two to Texas, one to Xavier, and there's a financial threshold that they were seeing that probably SLU wasn't able to match. So realistically, two is fine. We said all along two is probably in line with expectations. It's what we've seen recently. VCU, Utah State, a bunch of other coaches tend to take two guys with them. So back to Swope, he shot 36.2% from three. It was down from 42.3% at Southern Indiana the year before, but his volume was way up. Our friend Jack Godar pointed out that he shoots threes both off the catch and the dribble. He's just a great shot creator. He also averaged 2.1 assists per game, 2.8 rebounds per game. He wasn't really the point guard. He's listed as a point guard on a lot of rosters, but he wasn't really the point guard in their offense. He was, just more of an undersized shooting guard is probably how to think of him. He was named second team all conference. Avila made the first team, and three Indiana State players were on the second team. He was one of them. He played half of last season on a torn meniscus, and he had loose cartilage in his knee as well.
That sounds
And that
horrific.
it sounds really painful. I mean, when Schertz calls him tough, he's not kidding around. And Valley announcer Harry Schroeder, along with Stu Durando, said that Swope had surgery and his knee will be good to go by the beginning of June. So we think he's going to be a great fit. And if he's at 100%, when next season rolls around, he's going to be one of the more dangerous guards in the A10, I think.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Obviously, I've never experienced, I don't believe, any sort of tearing or any part of the knee, but I now sympathize with knee issues, and I can't imagine, like, loose cartilage. Doing anything on that sounds terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds really
Uh,
painful.
this one, the next commitment is going to be by far the toughest one for me as it pertains to Guy Phillipsisms. And I wonder, what are we going to see from Guy Phillips this year with regarding this player? Because sneaky, it's easy, but it's sneaky. And
It, it, it
I don't know if I like it. I don't like pronouncing it like this. I'm
there's a
sorry, Josiah. I don't like it.
Well, you got the first name right because that's the other part where there's a little sneaky. It's Josiah with a soft S instead of Josiah, right?
I think that's everybody.
No, I have a player on my U10 soccer team named Josiah with a hard S, and his is more of a Z sound. So if you're saying Josiah, Zach, and maybe now I got something in your head and you're going to say it backwards.
No, I don't.
There was a Josiah in my neighborhood growing up. I used to think his name was Joe, last name Saya, because I didn't know the name Josiah. But yeah,
Wow.
I've known multiple Josiahs. Anyway, his
I
is
just,
Josiah.
I just assume they're all Josiah, like it's biblical. Or was that Josiah?
I
I don't
don't
know.
know. I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
The letter makes the same sound regardless. It's
More of a Z
oh,
than an S. Okay.
okay,
But the
fine.
last name is tricky because we were saying Dotzler last week, but it's really Dotzler. Dotzler is Dotzler. So go with it.
I mean,
He's
that's German, right? We're all on board. That's German.
I would think so. Sure.
I don't know. I don't know. I just thought that's
He was the freshman guard from Creighton. We did talk about him last week and I think the week before. He visited 2 weekends ago. He committed on the same day as Swope. Um, no, I think he made it official the next day, Tuesday the 23rd.
yeah.
So he's
Nobody stepped on any toes on here. I don't think.
no, that's right. So he's listed at 6'3", 185. So he's got more size than Swope. He only appeared in 19 games as a freshman, averaged just 4.1 minutes in those appearances. So there's not really a lot to take from his freshman numbers at Creighton. As a senior at high school at Belleville West in Omaha, he was the
Bellevue.
Nebraska Bellevue. Did I say Belleville?
Yeah.
Okay, all
That's all
right.
right. We can.
I'm a St. Louisan. What can I
Yeah.
say? He
Have
was
you,
so
have you
he
seen that video of the teacher trying to teach French in St. Louis?
I, I have
It's
not,
pretty
but
funny.
I can only
Yeah,
imagine.
you can look it up.
So when he was a senior at Bellevue West in Omaha, he was the Nebraska Gatorade Player of the Year. He led his team to a state title and a perfect 29-0 record. He was on the Mocan Elite AAU team that won the EYBL title in 2022 as well. So really successful as a prep player. He was offered by Indiana State, Drake, and a few others out of high school. Creighton was his highest level offer. But the point is, Schertz recruited him then too. So there's mutual familiarity already between the two. And then he said one of the main reasons he picked Creighton was because of the fast pace they play at. So I think Slew and Schertz's style should be a nice fit for him as well. As for his game, I think I'd say he's just kind of a well-rounded guard. He's left-handed. He's a steady shooter, strong finisher with either hand. He's a solid passer. So Schertz said, Josiah is a player that we recruited out of high school. After watching him that summer, we thought he was a great fit for us systematically with his ability to play with the ball and without it. He's a cultural fit because all he cares about is adding to winning and being a great teammate. To win at the highest level, you need really good players and people who can impact winning on both ends of the floor. And we believe Josiah certainly does that. So Zach, this seems like another one where he's all about fit, right? Like he's being very, very deliberate at how he's putting this roster together.
It's a beautiful thing and certainly a welcome change of pace, Pete.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, all the pieces have to fit. And we've talked about him before. He's kind of got a unique backstory.
Mm-hmm.
He's the second youngest of 14 kids. He's already engaged as a college freshman. His older brother, Josh, played for Dana Altman at Creighton in 2005 to 2009 and is second all time in steals for the program. And his family runs what's called Abide Omaha, a nonprofit whose mission statement is to revitalize the inner city one neighborhood at a time. Abide provides a holistic approach that focuses on developing stronger families, safer neighborhoods, and emerging leaders. So that nonprofit Abide was founded by their parents, and it's now run by Josh, the one who played at Creighton, and his wife with one of their sisters who serves as development director. So pretty interesting family and backstory and all of that kind of stuff. But it sounds like he's a nice kid and he's gonna fit in well.
They're very popular. I think I mentioned it uh, on the previous episode in Omaha. That family is very popular. They loved Josh Dotzler, and they were very sad to see Josiah transfer. So
It seems like everything I've heard so far from Creighton fans and like people posting snippets from their message board or Twitter or whatever, it seems like nobody really wanted him to go. Like they wanted to kind of keep him around and develop him there.
yeah, the only red flag I see is that he visually looks like a certain former Billiken player turned YouTuber.
Mm.
That's the only red flag I see here, and I think I can let that go.
Okay. Well, maybe you can recommend maybe a different hairstyle or something. Maybe
Yeah, I
do something
think
a little bit different with his facial hair to kind of
yeah, a little
set him apart.
yeah, yeah. I know. I'm sure this I'm sure this guy Josiah is going to be a much higher character. I think I'm comfortable dying on that hill.
Yeah, I think you're probably right with that one.
Um, let's talk about this. This one's an interesting commitment, and I think I want to I want to know if you uh think we should let's just go ahead and talk about him. AJ Casey, 6'9", 221. He's a sophomore forward from Miami. He visited SLU on Monday, announced his commitment and signing on Wednesday. Pete, what do we know about this guy?
Yeah, he's an interesting case, right? Because he appeared in 29 games as a freshman at Miami, and we're talking about the U, Florida, and 24 as a sophomore. He played 7.7 minutes a game, didn't put up much in the way of numbers. He averaged about 2 and 2 as a sophomore, but kind of what happened here, Zach, is basically when he showed up as a freshman at Miami, that's the season that they really just decided to go all in on NIL and the portal. And they had that billionaire who's funding the biggest NIL deals at the time for transfers. You know, Nigel Pack was one of the
Life
early ones.
wallet.
That's right. Yeah, so they were some of the first ones where we were really seeing some eye-popping numbers. And that's a bad time to show up as a high school, recruit on campus, I think. So I don't want to make excuses like, oh, he's great and they have no I honestly think he just was he hit the wrong program at the wrong time, right?
Yeah.
And they were immediately recruiting over guys who were already there. But out of high school, he was a 4-star top 75 recruit. He went to Whitney Young in Chicago. He picked Miami over DePaul, Gonzaga, Memphis, Michigan, Ohio State, among others. So he was a big time recruit, make no mistake. First team All State. He led Whitney Young to a city title and a state finals appearance. He actually went to Simeon as a freshman and then Tinley Park as a sophomore before Whitney Young as a junior. Like Avila, he played AAU ball for Mean Street, so they know each other through that. But they actually also apparently played together in middle school, and there were photos of them on their AAU team at the time, kind of making the rounds, and that was pretty fun to see. He was, look, he comes from Miami. They've got a really good head coach in Jim Larinaga. He was well coached there. He made the Final Four as a freshman, right? So as much as we might say like he wasn't part of their rotation, he kind of got recruited over there. They still made the Final Four. It worked that year, and he got that experience. What Schertz says about him is pretty cool. He says the things that really pop out to me are his athleticism and versatility on both ends of the floor. He's a true hybrid, which means offensively he can play with a big and also operate as a small ball five. Defensively, he has the quickness, length, strength, and lateral quickness to guard 1 to 5. He's a great young man who's hungry for this opportunity, and I cannot wait to partner with him to help him reach his ceiling as a player. Again, fit.
Yeah, I love that. I cannot wait to partner with him to help reach his ceiling as a player. I think that was one thing that we really didn't. We felt like we didn't see that in the previous regime. So I think having a coach who places an emphasis on that, on development, is such a welcome change. One thing that I wanted to ask you about, because it was brought up, talking about, I think we should go ahead and finish the commitments, but I want to talk about players who come from bad teams
Mhm.
and players that don't play minutes on bad teams. I want to get into that because I think it's really interesting trying to evaluate talent based on nothing. Like it's hard to say, oh, this guy's going to come over and be good for us when they come from a bad team and they didn't play. So I do want to get into that. Kalu Anya, just off the presses, 6'8", 215. He's a sophomore out of Brown, 2 years of eligibility left. This kind of happened right before we went on the air, sort of, relatively speaking. What do we
Mhm.
know about Kalu? Lou to the Lou was what he tweeted, and I thought that was really neat.
So he's a nice player out of the Ivy League. He averaged 9.6 and 7.4 on 47.2% shooting. I know those aren't huge numbers, like when you think of the Ivy League, those aren't like unrealistic numbers, but Brown has always been kind of like they've really been a bottom half Ivy League team. They play in a small gym. They're not a top half Ivy program, and they upset top seed Princeton in the Ivy League tournament. They only use a 4-team tournament, and Brown was the 4 seed, and he was part of the reason for that. he's a really athletic player, really good athleticism. He's not a good free throw shooter, unfortunately. He's only about 51% percent from the free throw line, but he's a good rebounder. I mean, he's just a really active forward. He's from Massachusetts, but went to IMG Academy for his junior and senior years of high school. And at Brown, he's studying applied mathematics and economics, which at an Ivy League school is no joke. Pretty wide range of
What
interest when he hit the portal. What were you gonna say?
what final club is he about to get into?
Well, maybe he didn't get in one, and that's why he's
Oh yeah,
transferring.
good
Uh,
point.
yeah. So he had a wide range of interest when he hit the portal. The tweet that said SLU had originally reached out listed about 30 other schools at all levels. So this is one when I first saw it, I was kind of like, okay, if we hear more, I'll pay attention. But otherwise, I'm just going to give it a retweet and move on. And I that's what I did. And of course, a few days later, it's like, oh, this kid's going to visit. I better pay attention. But I think again, he's going to be a good piece in this system. It's not really clear to me yet. Um, what the starting lineup exactly will be outside of Avila, Swope, and Jimerson. I think you can kind of make arguments for him, for Casey. You know, like we still have 3 scholarships to give, so we'll kind of see how it comes together. But I what we have here now is a few intriguing players who can all play the four for big minutes.
One thing we've noticed a lot, and I don't think it is, I don't think it's a special note. Like we're not special for noticing. I think everybody's noticed it. But
Right.
one thing we've noticed is that the first of all, the full marketing push, but also within the Instagram and Twitter posts, the players are using 314 quite a bit. I like this.
Yeah, I do too, and I want to bounce back to you, but I think I would just say is to me, um, and I know you wanted this, but it seems like the whole Team Blue thing has been retired, right? They're moving on, but 314 is cool because they're kind of it seems like a very intentional rebrand to say like this is St. Louis's team, and I think your thoughts are probably along those lines as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you have to do more than say you're St. Louis's team. I think we've seen,
Sure.
we tried that. I think you can be St. Louis's team without having St. Louisans on it. Sure, having Corey Tate is great for that,
Hmm.
but you don't have to have St. Louisans, and I think you just have to have players that embrace the city, embrace what it means to play in the city. So, yeah, I think everybody kind of knew that any sort of remnants of a tagline or you know, well, I rallying cry are gone from the previous regime. So, yeah, you know what? Our good friend Michael Gaines pointed out something the other day on Twitter. I believe it was him. He tweeted about how everything has been synced up on social media with these commitments.
Yeah. Yeah, they really have done a great job with that, and he pointed it out, and I know a few other people have as well. So we're not the first to notice this, but every time we hear about a commitment, players have already signed, right? So the program can push out the official graphic on social media. Then they follow it up with an email announcement with a link for season ticket renewals. Stu Durando's article is all ready to go. He posts it almost immediately when the announcement's made, shares it on social media, and then a little bit behind that, you'll have Billiken Victory Fund Communications, retweeting about the commitment, reminding you where you can go donate to that. And then they're even updating the website with each additional signing and coaching staff addition under the 2024-25 roster page. Zach, I mean, I just can't say it enough, but the difference in overall communications from this staff and the previous one could not be more different. And there's no question that to me this is just better for the program.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, SLU was hemorrhaging season ticket holders.
Hmm.
Eh, I mean, I was out. Like if I'm out,
You and a couple thousand others, I think.
no, but I mean, if I'm to the push to the point of being
Oh, I
out,
know. I know.
then yeah. So I think I think with no publicity for the program or information, it's almost like we're trying to overcompensate at this point by just lapping up everything that's put in front of us. Um, but I think this is huge. Again, I think as much as Josh Schertz is the right coach here and he's going to do great things, I believe, um, he is also an incredibly good marketer. He's very savvy with the media, savvy with, the way he presents everything, but also getting Robbie Avila and Isaiah Swope um, are absolutely game changing marketing tools. You can look at your fan base and say, look, these guys have done it with this guy before. We're putting this in Chaffetz Arena. This is exactly what we're gonna do. And I think it's major, major, major for the marketing.
It is. It is. And like I said, the roster's not done yet. You know, we still might have some more exciting players to market out there, even if they're high school guys. I mean, like this is it's a well-constructed roster. You've got unique players, unique looking players. You've got just like there's a lot to really sell here. And having local media and all of these internal functions synced up on the same page, ready to go, it's a constant wave of like exciting news coming out. I know it's going to be hard to sustain as we get into like late May and into the summer and all that kind of stuff. I get that, and it's fine, right? Like it's you don't need people thinking about it 365 days a year unless they're you or me. But like enough to kind of keep local fans interested, engaged, periodically reminded about this. It's just making a huge difference to have this stuff happening, and it's so much positive vibes, like hitting their marketing, hitting the airwaves and social media and all that kind of stuff at the same time. They've been relentless with it and done an incredibly good job, I gotta say.
I think as well with that, it's the news on recruiting and getting that intel directly from a traditional sports writer.
Hmm.
Um, it's I mean, you know about everything that's going on now. It's all part of that effort. And we're talking about recruits too that haven't signed or maybe didn't even sign. We knew about Cameron Hunter. We knew about Cameron Sheffield. We knew about Nick Patton. Uh, we knew about, Connor Turnbull, Cam Manyewu, Grant Newell. We knew about all these guys because the information is flowing out from the coaching staff. The coaching staff understands that this is what we need to do
Yeah.
to keep our fans engaged.
Yeah, and they've done a great job with it. I mean, Schertz just flat out said I guess it was Monday when he was on the air with Frank and Rammer. He said, I was just at, I think he was Salt and Smoke or Sugar Fire, one of those on Sunday night. And then he goes, I've got two recruits in Monday, one Tuesday, and then two more Thursday to Saturday. And I think we pretty much know who all of them were between the couple guys we already talked about as commitments and then a few more, Zach. I mean, AJ Casey on Monday, and we think there may have been another one who I don't want to name yet, just in case, on Monday. But
Wait, a visitor?
yeah, another visitor, a Schertz recruit, but he hasn't committed or anything yet. And I just
Okay.
anyway, I did that one. I for reasons I don't want to get into his name or anything. But yeah, we heard about a couple more as well. You mentioned Cameron Hunter and Cameron Sheffield. Hunter was the 6'3" guard from Central Arkansas. He was in the portal last season and picked Butler over SLU, Loyola, Mizzou, and Arkansas, but wound up staying at UCA and then, of course, suffering a foot injury in October that kept him out all year. So he already visited Iowa and Arkansas before coming to SLU, and then he went to Wisconsin, where he ultimately ended up committing on Sunday, and he'll have 2 years of eligibility left there. Cameron Sheffield, not committed yet. He's a 6'6", 195-pound wing from Rice.
Hashtag not committed.
Not committed. He also has 2 years of eligibility left because of the COVID bonus year and a medical red shirt because he missed this past season with an injury. But since he was at Rice for 4 years and he's graduated, he's considered a grad transfer. He averaged 7.6 points and 6.1 rebounds a game as a junior, shot 37% from three. He can probably play the three or the four and stretch the floor with his shooting. It's not really clear to me who else is recruiting him at the moment. But he's an intriguing player, even though he was hurt this last year. And we haven't really done a lot on the wing, right? Like we're kind of seeing the four and the five come together a little bit. We're kind of seeing the guard positions come together. But I gotta think in these last three spots, we're not done on the wing yet. And then you mentioned Nick Patton. We also had him in. He's a 2024 high school player from Loyola Academy, Midwest Basketball Club. Visited campus this week. We saw a picture of him and Schertz together, but we think he'd be a walk-on. There's just not a whole lot about him recruiting wise. So I think that's what would be happening there.
Some previous visitors that we kind of need to update. Connor Turnbull, sophomore from Butler, Pete. He's heading to Evansville.
Yeah, he is. So he visited last week and also visited Evansville. Drake fans said he visited there at some point too, but you're right. He committed to Evansville on Tuesday. He pretty much, I'm guessing he just didn't want to play a backup role at SLU, right? And some people are suggesting that his elbow that he injured back in December missed the second half of the year at Butler. Some people are saying that that might still be an issue. This is actually the third time he's been recruited by SLU, and there's a chance it won't be the last. So Connor Turnbull will flirt with, I guess, every spring, it seems like. But yeah, this round he's not coming here either.
There's a parallel to, again, I'm telling you, this is dating. This is all this is. Like there's I don't know about you, but there has to be a majority of the population that has one person that they always come close to dating, but then it's never the right time, and then they never date. That's got it. That's a normal thing, right?
Sure.
There, see, just like dating people.
Just like dating.
Cam Manyewu, freshman from Wyoming. This felt stale. This just, I mean, it was kind of one of those things.
He visited SLU on the 15th, headed to Drake on Wednesday the 17th, and then finally, here we are on the 28th as we record, and it was just today that he made it official for Drake. So 2 full weeks after he visited either school is when he finally called it. But I think we always saw Drake as the favorite, right? He's been following that assistant around wherever he goes, and he went from Indiana State to Wyoming, and now he's at Drake. So that's where Cam's going to play.
Grant Newell, where do we sit with this gentleman?
I really don't know. He's the sophomore forward from Cal. He's also about 6'9", 220-ish. Visited last week. He's got 2 more visits lined up after SLU. He went to Utah State before he went to SLU, but I don't know. I have not really seen much in the way of updates from him, either about him or from him on social media. So we're just kind of in a wait and see position with that one, the same way we were with the previous guy. Like they'll pop up whenever they do. So I really don't know what else to say other than it seems like he's just kind of exploring all of his options.
The two remaining Indiana State players that had been signed by Schertz, Merritt Alderink, per Hunter Tickle, a writer based in Terre Haute. That's his real name.
Real name.
Alderink has not yet asked to be released from his letter of intent, and it could go either way. I don't think he's going to end up here at this point. I think if that was the case, we would have some sort of idea. Robert Sean Birmingham doesn't exist. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just kind of a ghost. Maybe he'll still end up at Indiana State. I don't know. I haven't heard otherwise.
Speaking of kind of a ghost, Jacquavis Williford, long story short, he requested his release from letter of intent, and he's heading to the West.
He is. Yeah, he's staying out on the West Coast. Between the number of spots left to fill stated by Schertz on Monday, right, and Stu's follow-up tweet to West Pine Bills, it appeared that the book was closing on Williford coming to SLU. Like Stu seemed pretty confident of that early this past week, and then on Tuesday it was official. Stu tweeted out that he had been released from his letter of intent, And then shortly after that, we found out he was heading to Oregon State, which was actually one of his 3 finalists in the fall, along with SLU and UNLV. So, look, I'm glad he still had a spot there. It's nice to end up. That's a pretty good situation, right? If you end up at one of your other 3 finalists, if 6 months later one of them doesn't work out. So again, really glad he found a landing spot there, and wish him all the best. And it was going to be interesting, given that Schertz had recruited him in high school, to see if he was going to hang around at SLU, but I guess it wasn't meant to be.
We got some interesting news in the transfer portal regarding some former Billikens. Sincere Parker is headed to McNeese State, and Brad Ezewiro is headed to UAB, where they do, in fact, have jerseys with Birmingham written on them.
That's right. You were right all along. They
Clip
did
that. Somebody clip that.
He was pictured with one of the alternates. This is Birmingham on the front, and you were right. If Robert Sean Birmingham were to go there, he'd have the same word on both the front and back, at least when they wear those jerseys. I think the more, I mean, as a Weiro with Andy Kennedy, that kind of makes sense to me. I don't know, for whatever reason, that
No
just feels right.
defense.
It just feels right. Sincere Parker to McNeese State, playing with Will Wade. That's really interesting. McNeese has landed some like kind of big time transfers this round. So I don't know. I Parker going there. I'm like, I really want to watch them play now, right? Like that's kind of
Yes. Oh,
it could be fun.
It's must see TV.
Yeah, it really is. Who's the other guy they just landed? I'm trying to find
Anyway, while he's finding that,
Brandon Murray.
Oh, sorry.
Is it yeah, Brandon Murray. So Brandon Murray is a guy who was like, SLU recruited him out of high school. He's a Baltimore kid, and he went to LSU, Georgetown, Ole Miss. Do I have that right? I don't know if he ever actually played at Ole Miss, but regardless, he was a big time recruit out of high school, and now he ended up at McNeese. And so they're kind of collecting these like big time talents who never really found the right situation. So I'm interested to see what Will Wade does with these guys.
Will Wade's merry band of misfits.
That's a really good way of putting it, actually.
Just guys that he does feel like the kind of guy that just goes it. He feels like a modern day Huggins.
I mean, that's not
That's
a
kind of
comparison.
That's kind of his brand, and I think it's been spurred on by the guy who I don't want to say JR. He his silly catchphrases. I think
Sure.
his catchphrase kind of eggs on that persona.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh boy, what do we got? Yeah, Abu Magasa, Brujang, unsure where they're headed. Although we did see video make the rounds on social media of Bruce working out, and he looks good. I still think these guys like Bruce and Steph and George really got a stink on them with Billiken fans, and it's kind of unfair, but because I do think they have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, if they all wind up at places that are actual good fits for them, I think they all could be pretty nice college players.
We mentioned transfers from bad teams where they didn't play very much. What do you think coaches are looking at when they, see they're scouting a player, a potential recruit, who played on a bad team? Because when you're recruiting high schoolers, every team is good with that player on it. So, I mean, do you have any insight on that? I don't know.
As to what coaches are looking at
Yeah, like when you scout
so,
a guy who's
so you
on a
wind up
bad
with
team.
Yeah, right. So now when you say a bad team, you're mostly talking about guys who didn't play much
Right,
at that team?
right.
So it's tricky, right? Because you don't have a lot of data in terms of like the numbers, right? You don't have a whole lot of video, and especially, and what you do have might not be from the most like meaningful part of games, right? They're playing late game minutes, or maybe they subbed on for someone who was injured late in a half or whatever. That you don't have like the best sample of what a guy does. So I think like, I mean, think about Dotzler with Schertz. Like he went back to a guy who he recruited and really liked in high school. And so and that's where he knew his body of work from. It wouldn't have been based on 77 minutes in a season at Creighton, right?
Interesting.
It had to be prior familiarity. So I think the other thing that's happening now is I've seen a lot of highlight videos of guys in practice. Like it's all of these practice, and so maybe there's something that catches a coach's eye, like a guy's size or his shooting or something like that, that really just stands out. And then that's what gets you to dig more into him and kind of see, well, what was he like at his prior school or at his prep school or whatever, and kind of take it from there, I think.
Let's talk about guys who did so with St. Louis University. And by that, I mean a guy who came from a power conference team to SLU. We can throw out Jake Forrester and Tremaine Isabel. Not that they're not lovely fellows,
Yeah.
but they started with a power conference teams that were going down through a down period. And then they went down a level to Temple and Drexel, respectively, before coming to SLU. Brad Ezewiro was one of those guys. I don't think SLU's had great luck with them, but we can go through them.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Because like you brought up this topic as something that you were kind of interested in, and I basically found in the last 10 years, going back to the end of the cruise years, and I found like 10 guys, and you're right,
Which, by
Forrester.
the way, this could be very skewed. In fact, by going to 10 years back, we're
Mhm.
looking at some bad freaking teams.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's it's just how it is. I mean, I
Yeah.
thought, well, what are our examples in recent history? And you're right, Forrester and Isabel are a little more unconventional, right? Because Isabel did put up big numbers at Drexel. Forrester was a rotation player at Temple. So those guys don't quite fit the mold of being like low producers on a bad team. But Ezewiro came from a really bad Georgetown team where he averaged 4.3 points, 3.5 rebounds a game, just over 12 minutes a game. At SLU, his minutes go up to 22 a game, and he averages about 12 and 6. So a big jump in production. And I think that's one of those cases where a guy plays at LSU, plays at Georgetown, maybe even if Georgetown's not a good team, that those are still Big East SEC programs, and he was a heavily recruited player out of high school. I think that's enough to like get Ford and his staff to go, like, if you're SLU, right? Like, you're not going to get the guy who averaged 12 and 6 at a power conference school. They're like, here's our NIL bag. Here's what we have to work with. Here's the realistic set of players we can get and go from there. And I think Brad's one of those guys that comes across, right? Because he's not going to transfer up again out of like a Big East SEC level program if he's kind of not put up numbers at the programs in the past. So he's got to come down a level, and SLU's a reasonable landing spot for that kind of profile.
Um, you gotta help me out here. I was
Javon Pickett would be the
Javon
next one.
Pickett. Okay, we're at Javon Pickett. I thought you said Bess, and so I got confused.
No,
Um,
I mean
Ja-
Pickett's a weird case though, right? Because Mizzou
yeah.
was not great in those years, but he actually did. He was an important player there. Like he was a rotation player. Like he played 32 minutes a game and wound up being more than he actually played at SLU. His production was more or less the same. He averaged 10 points and 4.5 rebounds at SLU. But yeah, his minutes went down, and I think he was looking for a fifth year at a relatively familiar place where he had a chance to win. Obviously, it didn't work out that season, but yeah, that's a guy coming from a quote unquote bad school, but I think with a little more production behind him. And the thought was that that would translate to SLU, and it wound up it was he was kind of more or less who we thought he was.
I kind of want to go a little bit quicker through these because I don't want to get everybody bogged down in everything they did.
Yeah.
But some of the better ones, out there, obviously, you've got Javon Best, DJ Foreman, Rashad Anthony, and Ash Yakubu. I think you could Dion Wiley.
Yeah, he was
Well, I mean, he had a couple clutch moments for
he
us,
was
but
mostly hurt though.
yeah,
He played through injuries that year, so he
yeah,
just wasn't himself. And then I think Francis Okoro is another one. Like
yes,
he was a good player. Maybe he didn't put up the numbers we thought he would, but I think now without him, you kind of realize like how valuable he was
yeah.
going through this last season. But those other guys are all examples, Zach, of guys coming from power conference programs, getting a chance at SLU and showing that they're actually worthwhile. Anthony is the one kind of outlier in that he put up basically no numbers. He was a role player, he's a practice player, he's a culture guy, right?
Big
Everyone loved
vibes, big time
the
vibes.
number one vibes guy ever from what his reputation kind of tells us. But I think the point of all of this is to look at these guys and just say, there's not really number one, there's not a true formula like someone coming down a level or coming from a bad team where they didn't really produce isn't automatically going to succeed once they're given an opportunity. They're not always going to be the right fit. But the thing that is kind of driving me crazy in the mid-major quote unquote transfer market narrative this year is our guy SB Unfurled is probably leading the charge on this. He keeps publishing all this data about here are the biggest gainers in the transfer portal and here are the biggest losers. And the gainers tend to be these power conference programs with big NIL bags, and the losers tend to be lower conference programs who are having their players pulled away. But the point I want to make is that guys like Javon Bess and Ash Yakubu and DJ Foreman and a lot of these other guys who didn't put up big numbers at power conference program. So those like Michigan State by losing Javon Bess is not really losing anything on paper. But so they push that over to SLU and they're saying, well, SLU's not really gaining anything. The way that these power conference programs are taking mid-major players who average double figures. So it looks like the power conference programs are taking everybody and they've got everything. And we may or may not think that's true. But those other guys who didn't really get a big opportunity at power conference programs are going to get that. And they're way undervalued if you're just looking at production versus production. Because a lot of the guys going up are not going to put up the same numbers that they did before. And a lot of the guys coming down are going to put way bigger numbers. And I don't think that's being factored into a lot of the conversation. You don't have to like all the transferring. You don't have to like the way that they're pulling away mid-major players. That's all fine. But I think we have to keep in mind what the real value is because those guys are going to be playing different minutes.
That's a really good point. And honestly, I didn't think about it that way, so I appreciate that.
I'm
I
just throwing
just
that out there.
I was eating the graphics they were putting out. I mean, I don't like where things are at right now. I think
It,
I can get into it. It's
it's
brutal.
not an easy retort to make in a single tweet. And I know like a lot of those guys just don't want to hear it because they're having their programs plundered, right? And they're getting guys who may have averaged 3 points per game from somewhere, but like somebody's got to go out there and play. And sometimes those are actually going to be pretty good players who just did for whatever reason didn't get off the bench. And I think the bottom line is we don't know until they actually play. And it really seems to be at SLU mostly about fit and not what the player did or didn't do at the previous school.
Which is
So
exciting. I think it's huge
yeah,
for a
yeah,
program like us that may have a good NIL bag, but not an outstanding NIL bag. So
yeah. I'm really not too concerned with their numbers. There's somebody like Casey or Dotzler or Anya. I mean, one of these guys is going to be a big star, and we don't know who yet, but they're going to get an opportunity in this system, and they're going to thrive.
by the way,
We just don't know yet.
Kalu Anya is a great name, but I cannot stop from saying BJ Anya in my head.
BJ. Yeah, this is another one where my wife's friend has a kid named Anya, so that's what I keep thinking about too. I mean, like I've
Now I'm thinking about An Young from Arrested
Anya.
Development. Like See, this is the problem. This is why people stop listening to us. No, nobody stops listening to us. Our numbers are insane.
Yeah, buckle up.
Um, yeah. Uh, roster. Let's talk about the roster actually. Give what are we looking at as far as scholarships?
So we've got 10 players lined up now, right? We've got 3 scholarships left to give. And if we're breaking it down by class, we've got 2 incoming freshmen, we've got a sophomore, we've got 5 juniors, we've got a senior, and then Jimerson's obviously a grad student, a deep into grad school grad student. Um, Positionally, things are a little bit weird right now, Zach. We've got so Jimerson's kind of, I guess I call him like a 2 or 3, depending on the lineup. Swope is more of a 1 or a 2. Kellen Thames, I think I'd call a small forward, right? And Hughes is more of a shooting guard. Avila is mostly listed as a center, but sometimes a power forward as well. And then you've got Casey and Anya, who are both junior power forwards, or will be. These, just to be clear, these are the classes that they will be next season. Dotzler is a guard, and McCautry is a guard slash forward. Played more of a wing this season, but Schertz has very conscientiously called him a point guard, so I think he likes the idea of a big point guard there. And then Max Picar calls himself a power forward. Obviously needs to add a lot of power to his frame, but that's kind of the lineup we have so far. So I think, like we said before, we seem a little light on the wing. Like we seem pretty deep at the 4. We have a lot of sort of hybrid guards. But Zach, if you're looking at key positions still to be filled, what do you want to do with these last 3 scholarships?
I mean, I obviously I there was so little rebounding and rim protection last year. I would love to
Hmm.
have a little bit of insurance on that end, but I mean, you know, I don't really know. Like, I know ball, but I don't know ball like Shirts knows ball.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positional versatility so far. Like a lot of these guys are really hard to pin down to one position, and that's fine. I don't think Schertz is true positionless basketball. I think there's a lot of room for improvising. I'll just say that, and I think there's a lot of room for guys to play role like Swope being more of a 2 in his system than a 1, as most coaches would probably play him, I think is an example of that. And Avila kind of being that point center, and things revolving around him, I think gives a lot of people the ability to really flex positions. So we have that positional versatility already. You said we need rebounding and rim protection. I don't disagree at all. I think we're deep at the 4, but another like true center, like a true big, I would not be mad at all, or an at the basket kind of 4. I think makes sense. But also another primary ball handler. We've got Dotzler, we've got McCautry, we've got Swope, we've got guys who can play the role of the 1, but I want somebody who's like a true
We've
point
also
guard in
got
there as well.
Hughes.
We've got Hughes, but I've never seen him as a 1. I know some people do, but I don't see him at all as a ball handler. So I don't know. I think that's kind of what we're still going to address. I think we're still going to see a combination of transfers and high school players. I don't know out of the 3 what the mix is going to be, but I kind of think that's where we're at now.
Uh, we got new offers out. And by the way, I'm really sorry, but I keep saying before I say something. I got told the other day that I need to stop that. So I'm working on it. Thank you for letting me know. Very nice person out there who had who's willing to go out on a limb and tell me that. So I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. Let's talk about Dietrich Richardson. And the first thing I think about, what's the first thing you think about when you see that first name?
Dietrich,
I think it's Dietrich Bader for me. From whose
that,
line is it anyway?
isn't he Diedrich though?
It's Dietrich. I don't know. It's the same. See, this is the shit with the Josiah and Josiah.
I know.
It's the same name.
I guess I'm a little persnickety about those things, but no, I don't know who the first Dietrich. It's just a very German name to me.
It is.
It's not a name you see very often, especially for a 20 class of 2025 point guard who's again point guard 6'7", 180. Schertz definitely has a type at the one. Peoria, Illinois,
It's like
Manual High
dating.
School. It's yeah, that's right. So Peoria Manual has been a powerhouse, back in the 80s and 90s, and not so much anymore, but it certainly has strong tradition there. Mid Pro Academy AAU. Ford's program recruited that AAU program a little bit. I kind of like the way that they play. I kind of like the players that come out of there. Not really big stars, but a lot of nice college players. Anyway, great size, really long. You don't see a point guard, junior, rising senior with those dimensions very often. He's a good playmaker, nice pull-up jumper. He gets to where he wants to go. He's a good finisher, moves well. He's a disruptive defender, as you're going to be when you're that long at a one. Other offers right now: Illinois, Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech, Arizona State, Indiana State. I don't know if it'll still be fresh under the new coach, but Schertz offered him there. That's why he became one of his first offers in St. Louis.
I'm
SIUC,
shocked.
Bradley, Green Bay, Bryant, and he's got interest from all over the place: Big Ten, Big East, ACC, SEC, Big 12, Mountain West, others. Every program, for every power conference seems to have at least one program sniffing around. So really nice looking player. Best looking prospect out of Peoria in a while, I think. And man, would he be a nice fit in Schertz's program. I do want to add one note to kind of put a button on all of the transfer talk for today. Um, as we record, it's Sunday the 28th. As you listen, it's at least the 29th. The transfer portal closes to new entries on the 1st of May. It doesn't mean players have to be committed by then, but if you're going to transfer, you have to be in the portal by May 1st. So that's something to keep an eye on this
That would
week.
be awesome if the portal closes and you have to be committed by it. That'd be awesome. You just get froze out.
This week would be wild if that were actually if that were true.
Oh, we need to do that's how you rein this in.
There are still programs that don't have a head coach right now. So the idea that they that they would have until May 1st to have a roster set is hilarious.
Coaching staff position got finalized. Brett Putz, recruiting coordinator.
Recruiting coordinator, and this was originally reported by West Pine Bills over 2 weeks ago. We mentioned it because we figured it would be any day now. No idea why the announcement took so long, but he comes from Bryant, where he was the director of player development. Before that, he worked for Schertz at Indiana State as the special assistant to the head coach, which is a non-recruiting assistant position. He won a JUCO D2 national championship at Des Moines area community college in 2021, came in third the following year. He played his college ball at St. Cloud State up in Minnesota, started coaching there, then moved to Wayne State in Nebraska before going to Omaha, and then Highland Community College in Chicago State. So he's kind of bounced around JUCO D2 and kind of lower tier D1 for a while, but has some interesting experience. He knows what it's like to win, and Schertz really thinks highly of him. So I think it's a nice hire to round out the staff.
Pete, I don't know if we can keep doing this segment that I'm about to bring up because there's so much of it.
There's so much of it, which is why I cut it down to two this week. And
Thank
what
God.
one of them, I think the reason it's long, Zach, the reason when you look at this, it's long. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. Like like
Yes,
like really good actual information and color.
I know. I just, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Maybe you know what? I think it's going to slow down a little bit. So don't get too exasperated. But the first one, Zach, is Coach Schertz was on 590 on Monday with Frank and Rammer, as we hinted at earlier, and it was a pretty nice segment, I think.
Yeah, it was. He said Avila told him he'd follow him anywhere. He took the job, or he took a job, and Swope told him 2 days before his visit he would commit. It was going to be impossible to keep all five guys. Guys had to be willing to sacrifice some money. Avila is one of the most unique people Schertz has ever been around. Unbelievable sense of self at 20 years old. He didn't put himself in position to negotiate, but he could have made a lot more elsewhere. The relationship and system pieces are big to him. He also thinks he can make up for what he lost on the front end by making more on the back end, including reaching the NBA. Schertz and May are trying to move the BVF to where it needs to be to compete for the best talent. A little bit of a stray there for the
Yeah.
BVF.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was a nice point though. Like, he's like, yeah, you're right. He's acknowledging that it's just like
Yes,
not where it needs to
I
be.
love that. That's
Yeah.
what we've been asking for years.
Hmm.
I said years and then I thought, no, it couldn't have been years, but it's been years,
Technically, yes.
more than one.
Hmm.
Uh, Picard had verbally committed to Indiana State before Schertz's departure, but didn't go public with it, saying he'd go with Schertz. Schertz thinks he has A10 player of the year potential down the line because of how skilled he is for his size. By the way, Sycamore fans aren't going to like hearing that.
Nope.
True 6'11 perimeter player. He can guard any position except the 5. He's not strong enough yet. He's, quote, a unicorn, and we love unicorns in our system. That's not the kind of unicorn you find in Swing Haven. That's like an actual, like legit with the horn and the, yeah. Rammer said he met him after he visited St. Bonaventure, and Picard said that he really liked Penn State. Came down to Indiana State and Penn State. He said McCautry has NBA potential, is absolutely a high major player who could have played anywhere in the country, raved about his athleticism, size, feel for the game, and potential. He also specifically called him a point guard, which I assume has to do with his recruitment.
Yeah.
He said they still have 6 spots to fill. This would indicate about that Williford wasn't coming. The Billikens only had 6 spots before Dotzler's announcement, if you didn't include Williford. 1 visitor on Sunday, 2 players on campus Monday, 1 on Tuesday, and 2 more on Thursday to Saturday. You know, with all the legal trouble Diddy is in, I think we can change it from Diddy doesn't sleep to Schertz doesn't sleep.
Sure.
Confident where they stand with many of the recruits.
Yeah, and a couple of those have already called it for SLU. So
The mix of transfer and high school player, like you talked about it. He's looking for the best fit. It's not just accruing talent. Again, like we said, it's a different strategy and one that is incredibly welcome, I think, by both of yours truly.
yeah, he
Uh,
keeps making that point. I think he wants people to know how deliberate he's being with this process. Not
the,
just accruing talent. I like that. I like that quote. It's not right. It's not just an auction right now. Like you actually still have to build a team.
and that helps with our NIL too, because these are
Yes.
the type of guys that you can talk to and understand that taking, like Robbie talked about, taking the L on the front end, so to
Mhm.
speak, and then getting that dub on the back. Bet on yourself. We're
That's
going to
what he's
put you
doing.
in position to succeed.
Yeah.
They did Capital Grill and Charlie Gito's with Avila and Swope. Going to Sato for sushi, probably next on the list, but got turned down because they wouldn't make a reservation for more than 6. Ouch.
Hmm.
He's clearly not he's not Spoon Hour level yet, nor
No.
Majerus for
Well,
getting a
yeah, I
table.
think they had I think he said they had a group of 8 and they were just steadfast and they're like, nope, we don't take more than 6. He said he's a big sushi guy though, so he's really been itching to get there. So hopefully soon.
Uh, let's see. Went to Salt and Smoke last Sunday with a recruit. Amari McCautry also picked there. Players got to choose where they want to go. Looking forward to going out and exploring more when recruiting slows down. Jimerson and Avila were guests on Killcoin Conversation on Thursday. Not a whole lot there. Both were good to hear from Jimerson. Jimerson said this was like transferring without transferring, and he's definitely got Bonner's scoring record in his sight. Avila said the ISU guys talked about keeping the starting lineup together, but it just didn't happen with that much money at stake. He's excited to be staying with Swope, however. Pete, just so much, so much in the way of news. It's hard to follow everything.
Yeah, it really is, Zach. It really is. And that's, I mean, we're making editorial choices. Like there are things that happened last week that we just don't have time or the willingness to get to. It's not necessarily worth hitting all of it, but it's been amazing how much there is to digest each week. Even when we have a slow period like we did Thursday, Friday, Saturday, not a whole lot of information, which I was fine with. I needed kind of a breather, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you know what I don't ever take a breather from? A jar of salsa. If I got a jar of salsa in front of me, it's me and the salsa till it's all gone, Pete.
Yeah, and Zach, that's easy to do with Two Men in a Garden. It's fantastic stuff. And like you said at the top of the show, it's Cinco de Mayo week. Get over to twomeninagarden.com, load up. You don't want to be shorthanded when Cinco de Mayo comes around. Go to their salsa products. They've got 9 to choose from on the website right now. You've got your fruited salsas, the peach, the hot mango, the strawberry. You've got your regular lineup with the mild, the medium, the hot, and the screaming hot. And then you've got medium in both cantina style and sugar free for a little bit of variety. So head over there now. There's something for everybody. There's something for your Cinco de Mayo party. I think you're going to want more than one of these around. And that's at twomeninagarden.com.
Pete, I've got some beef that I need to get off my chest here.
All right.
There's a rumor that Billiken women's basketball has a pending commitment from a power forward out of the Power Five. And I DM'd Skim Milky, aka the Trilly Donovan of women's college basketball.
Uh-huh.
And Skim Milky did not respond to my DM asking if they knew who this commitment was.
Mm.
So, yeah, Skim Milky's not for the people.
I would imagine those DMs are pretty full though.
It's true. But like we're important.
We are important. I would like to think we could get to the top of the pile,
I know
but
we need
we
to
don't
be
have a
higher up in
premium.
the Trilly Discord.
We
How
don't
do
have
we
a
get
premium account.
we're right
Yeah,
here. We need to get to here.
I think we're one good slew season away from having that status.
I hope. I hope. Let's talk about women's basketball. We'll get to the Billiken incoming, quote unquote.
Yeah,
But they had Brooke Simpson on campus for an official visit on Tuesday,
she's an
which is the
interesting.
most important Simpson news yet last week.
Yeah, too soon.
Oh,
I think you're right, number one. But number two, she's an interesting player. She's a 2024 recruit, so a senior right now from Saugatuck High School up in Michigan. First team All State. She actually missed her junior year due to a torn ACL. Only got to play 9 games as a freshman because of the pandemic season. So she actually became 1,000 point scorer halfway through her senior season, despite really missing over a season and a half of high school basketball. Just really impressive to do that. She's also visited Tulsa recently, and then had visited a lot of actually Power Five schools before their ACL tear. Her other offers are IUPUI, Robert Morris, Kent State, Oakland, Milwaukee, Navy, Eastern Michigan, and McNeese. She originally committed to Dayton, and SLU first offered back in May of 2022 before the ACL tear. So SLU is one of the few schools to kind of stick with her recruitment um, from before she tore her knee and then after. I think her offer list would be a lot different had that not happened. I mean, like there were photos, from previous visits that she had gone to Ohio State, she'd gone to Michigan, she'd gone to Marquette, schools like that. Tears her ACL, a whole year off, and then coming out of that, you're looking more at like Mac Horizon level offers. So a really interesting player, Zach, I think, and hopefully SLU's in the mix for a commitment here.
uh, looks like we've got a couple offers out. One of those is to a Brad Beal elite player.
Yeah, Josiah Wallace of Centralia High School and Brad Beal Elite AAU. Centralia is what, like an hour from St. Louis, I want to say.
Yeah,
Give or
Centralia,
take.
Illinois, I
Yeah,
think.
so
Yeah.
it's regional, local-ish. They're the Orphans, if memory serves, their high school mascot.
I think you can get away with that no matter what, right?
You
Is
can
that
get, yeah.
does that ever get is that heading down that path?
I don't.
I feel like it's not specific enough to
No, yeah,
it's
that
not
one's
specific to it's just specific to a circumstance.
it's a weird one. I actually do not know the history there, but it's so off the wall that I think it's great. And anyway, yeah, so that's a new offer there. She's a 2025 player. So it's good to see them recruiting, Brad Beal Elite as on the women's side as well.
Tillett has now tweeted Billiken incoming twice in the past couple of weeks with no official announcement, which is a bit of a tease, and I
Yeah.
don't appreciate it.
Well, you kind of teased who one of
That's
them might
true.
be, or at
I
least the
did kind of tease
profile
it.
of one of them.
Yes.
So that's all we know. We don't know who the two are yet. I'm surprised. This seems like the longest amount of time ever between her tweeting that out and us actually getting like commitment news.
They're
Uh,
definitely not coming in hot.
no, it's been over a week since the first time she did that, and I think a little under a week since the second one. So like, yeah, I'm very, very curious to see what's up. I've been going over to women's basketball blog frequently to see if there's anything that's coming over the wire there. But no, nothing yet, unfortunately.
Pete, let's head over to the diamond, the bigger diamond. I think we need to kind of go through baseball and softball kind of expediently because I really kind of want to talk tennis.
Yeah, you're right. I think tennis deserves a little more time. Baseball team had a pretty good week overall. 3-1 win at Lindenwood on Tuesday the 23rd.
Tough
All three
week.
tough week.
Yeah, no, well, we'll get to it, but
Yeah,
there was some adversity in there.
sure. But 3 out of 4 nonetheless.
Sure.
3-1 win at Lindenwood. All 3 runs came in the third inning. Easton Richter had an RBI triple that sent Ben Gallagher home. And then Richter scored on Sitzman's ground out to second. Patrick Closey singled, stole second, and then scored when Cole Smith reached on an error by the first baseman. Lindenwood got one back in the fifth, but that was it. Staff game for SLU. Dawson Smith started, pitched 3 scoreless innings. Evan Gray pitched a perfect fourth. Henry Littman pitched the next 3 innings and got the win despite surrendering the only run. And then Ethan Bell threw a perfect 3 strikeout eighth. Owen Kelly did the same thing in the next inning to register the save. And that was the Tuesday win. And then Zach, they went and took 2 out of 3 at George Washington.
Yeah, started off Friday, the 26th, with an 8-5 win. Easton Richter drove in SLU's first 3 runs with a 2-run double in the first, with a George Washington throwing error in the third. He had a third RBI in the seventh when GW walked in a run with him at the plate. That was part of a 4-run inning that also included a Drew Winters RBI single, a 2-run double from Graham Mastros as well, who's making a strong case for A10 Rookie of the Year. Patrick Closey stole 3 bases, scored 3 times. Jackson Holmes went 5 2/3, giving up 3 runs, getting the win. Josh Cunningham, Ethan Bell each gave up a run in relief, but it wasn't enough for GW. But they did come back and win the second game on Saturday.
They did 5-3 on Saturday, the 27th. SLU got out to a 2-0 lead in the first, but then GW scored 4 runs across the third and fourth innings to take a lead. They traded runs in the seventh. It was just a tough day at the plate for the Bills. 3 hits is all they could get after that first inning. Charlie Weber gave up 4 in 4 innings and took the loss. And then Henry Littman, he was solid over the next 4 innings, gave up 1 run on 3 hits over those 4 innings. But that was pretty much it for that game, Zach. Luckily, on Sunday, the 28th, they got the win 4-2. Notably absent from the lineup today, as we record, were Hayden Moore, Austin Newegg, and Patrick Closey, who all missed the game with injuries. Injuries are really starting to pile up for this team, aren't they, Zach?
Yeah, they are. It's tough. I mean, look, yeah, it's a little upsetting to not get the sweep against, was it Fordham last weekend, and now it's George Washington this week. Sure, but with the way the injuries are piling up, getting series wins and keeping yourself at the top of the standings is really where it's at. 4-2 win, like you said. Owen Kelly gets the win. Evan Gray picked up the save. Bit of a weird situation on the mound in this one. Dawson Smith started, went just 2 innings, despite striking out 2. Owen Kelly came in and gave 4.24 and 2/3 innings, while the save came from Evan Gray, and it required 2 innings of work. So an odd, handling of the pitching to get through this one. Cole Smith drove in 2. Winters and Fogarty had 1 RBI apiece. The Billikens sit at 29-11 in the standings, 10-5, or 29-11 overall, 10-5 in conference. Second place by a half game. Next up will be Tuesday the 30th at Butler, but then they come home for a 3-game weekend series against defending conference tournament champions George Mason. And revenge needs to be on the mind of the Billikens in this one.
Definitely.
Pete, take us over to the smaller diamond.
Yeah, softball, they love 1-run games. The 4-3 win versus SIUE on Wednesday the 24th. They took a 2-0 lead into the 6th, gave up 2 in the top of the inning to tie it, and then scored 2 in the bottom of the inning to retake the lead. Gave up 1, luckily just 1, in the top of the 7th to hang on to this win. Jane Kineski sent the first 2 runs home with a 2-out RBI double in the 3rd. Abby Mallow and Chloe Ryan had RBI singles in the 6th, also with 2 outs. So a lot of clutch hitting in this game. Slew was out hit 9-6 on the day, but Taylor Hockman pitched 4 scoreless innings. Lily Strand pitched 1 1/3 in the middle of relief. She's the one who gave up the runs. Isabel Royal came in for her to finish the game off and then ended up with the win. And then Zach, they had a double header up at Fordham on Saturday.
Yeah, 4-3 win in game 2, Saturday the 27th. That's game 1 of the doubleheader. The Billikens broke a 3-3 tie in the top of the 7th with an RBI double from Jocelyn Abbott. Billikens' first 3 runs came on a home run from Chloe Ryan in the 5th. Jane Kaniski went 3 of 3. Isabel Royal went all 7 innings for the win. Her record improves to 12-5. A 12-3 win in the rubber game. They finally got the bats rolling. Sullivan and Newbanks got things going early with 2 RBIs in the first inning. Fordham got 1 back on a fielder's choice, but the Billikens put this one out of reach in the 4th with a flurry of singles by Johnson, Kineski, Etling, and Ryan, all topped off with the cherry of a 3-run Yabo from Abby Mallow scoring Etling and Ryan. Kineski added insult to injury in the top of the 5th with a 2-run homer. Their record sits at 28-18 overall, 15-8 in the league. Second place by 2 games. They'll finish up the regular season with a home series against the Flyers. Doubleheader on Saturday the 4th with the final game Sunday the 5th. Pete, we had a great week of tennis. I watched, I don't know if you did, but I got into watching the women and the men. And it was a lot of fun multi-screening those games.
Yeah, I mean, it was even fun just to follow along, right? Because I only had the actual cams up for a little bit, but I did keep the stats going the whole time, and the way the scoring works, right? The way that they do the points in college tennis makes for some pretty high drama.
So I believe it goes. They play. I think they play. I know the doubles is best 2 of 3 to win a point.
Correct.
Win a single point, and then you have to win each of the singles is an individual point, and that's how you win. But Pete, run us down the women, and I'll go through the men because I was privy to watching that insane match.
Yeah, so the women, as the number 2 seed, got a first round bye and then faced the winner of 7 seed Dayton and 10 seed Duquesne. Dayton won that match 4-0. And then the women turned around on Thursday the 25th and beat Dayton 4-0.
Yeah.
Slew kicked things off early, won the doubles point, victories in the 1 and 2 spots, so they didn't even finish the 3rd one. Emerson White got the first singles win in the number 6 position, 6-2, 6-0. Mintusova, Zach, apparently dominated her opponent in number 1 singles. You put her here that she was absolutely demoralized.
So she was just like, it was over.
Yeah.
6-1, 6-2.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
No, I mean, just put the hurt on her. You even texted me at the time, like, like you could see the life exiting this girl's body. It was
Yes, it
just
was bad.
Fiorella Duran was the third singles victory across the line, also winning in straight sets at number 5, and that was all Slew needed. Those other ones went unfinished, given the nature of college tennis scoring. 4-1
Well,
though.
hold on. I wanted to set the stage because in the quarterfinals,
Yes.
the top seeded, the juggernaut of Atlantic 10 tennis, VCU, was knocked off by Duquesne, I believe.
Richmond, the 8th
Richmond,
seed.
which
Yeah.
hey, I love that. That's
Yeah.
the kind of Schadenfreude I can enjoy.
Yeah. And Richmond was the 8th seed. So that was a big shock. Like this wasn't a 1 or 2 seed. So that really opened up for the winner of this match. 2 seed Slew against 3 seed UMass on Friday the 26th in the semifinals. And unfortunately, Slew dropped a 4-1 decision. Mintusova and Alashina won at number 1 doubles, but Slew dropped the other 2 doubles matches to give UMass that point. Emerson White at number 6 was Slew's only win on the singles side. UMass, after beating Slew, went on to beat Richmond and win the league title. VCU has actually won all but 2 titles since joining the league on the women's side, with UMass winning in 2017 and Fordham in 2023. So this is back-to-back non-conference championships for VCU, and that has to sting a little bit.
Mintasova and Alashina again kicked the shit out of that number 1 doubles team.
Yeah.
It was an ass kicking, Pete.
Yeah, it's a shame that couldn't be spread out a little bit more, unfortunately. But a good season. Slew finished 15-4, which was the same record the men have. Combined program of or record of 30-8 is really impressive for a program that does not have its own facility on campus. So, gotta hand it to this program really heading in the right direction. But yeah, take us to the men's side, Zach.
Yeah, they played the 25th through the 28th. The Billikens got the 4 seed. They played a total thriller of a match against George Mason, the 5th seed, to the tune of a 4-3 win on Friday the 26th. I had this up at work. I was watching on on one of my 3 screens, and man, there was some real drama in this one. Mason took the doubles point. In the matches decided in 2 sets, the Billikens won number 3 and the number 6 singles. Mason won in the number 1 and 4 singles spots. That left 2 and 5 going to a 3rd set. The Billikens had to win both. Theo Ortiz won his 3rd set at number 5, so it came down to Andres Castellanos at number 2, and that match went on for quite a while, going to a 3rd set tiebreaker. And this one had a little bit of controversy, Pete. It's hard to watch it because obviously there's no commentary. You're kind of getting the ambient noise, the cheering of the team, which is really cool because you've got the 2 teams lined up on the court. They're lined up like probably just inside the singles line of the next court. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So right inside the service box there, that's where they would be. And they're just cheering and yelling and carrying on. So the atmosphere is great because the camera did have a microphone on it. So you got to hear that. So, but from what I understood, the ref made a big time makeup call. There was a service overrule. It was a serve. The umpires on this side of the court. The service is coming from this side of the court. It's going to the other side of the court. And the ref calls it in this service box law a good after the Mason player calls it in. She overrules the Mason player because it's call your own lines, I believe. I know that it's call your own lines, but I think in these bigger matches they have line judges and stuff on standby to overrule if anything is necessary. A challenge, I think, so to speak. Anyway, so I think the ref, the chair umpire, called a double fault earlier in Mason's favor in the tiebreak, And then later in the tiebreak, she called this service in as an ace. It automatically gave the ace to Slew because it went by. So they don't replay the point, they just call it an ace. So I think at that point, there were parts of this match with Castellanos where he looked like he was, having that mental anguish, that, that John McEnroe streak, getting frustrated with the ref, the umpire. And that ended up happening to the Mason player in this one. He lost that point, and that just was it. There were a couple rallies where the Mason player had Castellanos, and either an unforced error or Castellanos forced him into making a bad shot. It was just an outstanding performance from Andres. It ended up with a Slew dog pile. It was really fun to watch. And I promise you all, I know this is a Billiken basketball podcast, but if you're still listening to this, embrace these smaller sports. If you're watching the stuff with the NIL and the transfer portal and all of that, if that's bothering you, jump in on women's soccer, men's soccer, baseball, softball, get in on volleyball, tennis, support these players that are really, they're driving. This adds an hour. The fact that they play off campus, it adds an hour. It may be 15 minutes where they play from Slew, but that adds an hour to everybody's day, right? Your 15-minute commute to work and back adds 2 hours to your day. That's 2 hours you don't have. So these dudes are doing incredible stuff with very little resources. They ended up falling in the semifinal 5-0 to the number 1 seed and tournament favorite VCU Saturday the 27th. No surprise, VCU has won, like you said, all but 3 titles since joining the league. Last non-VCU champ on the men's side was GW in 2016. The result, obviously no surprise either. VCU is that good. The good news, however, that at the final record, as you mentioned, of 15-4, they finished with the highest win percentage in men's program history, posted back-to-back 15-win seasons for the first time since we were playing with sheep's stomach in between the playing with titanium rackets and sheep and natural gut string.
Yeah. Before either of us were alive.
Nobody even knows that reference. That's what's sick. Like that, they're playing with playing on grass back then. They were wearing long pants back then. Pete, run us down track and field before we get out of here.
Yeah, track was up at the Kip Janvrin Open at Simpson College, but also the Drake Relays at Drake in Des Moines. And they had some good results up there. A lot of school records actually fell. A lot of personal records and a few school records, I should say. Michaela McDowell ran a new school record time in the 400 meters at Drake, finishing in 54:07. It's the fastest time in the A10 this whole season. 2 relay team broke school records as well at Drake. Emily Nichols, Patricia O'Neill, Riley Franz, and then McDowell again finished the sprint medley relay in 3:56:01. Was a school record on the men's side. Sprint medley of Will Stewart, Danny Hopkins, Aiden Martin, and Malik Stewart posted a new school record of 3:26:59. Other top performances by the Bills. You had Journey Edmondson winning the triple jump with a mark of 12 meters, 4.42. Samantha Kunza placed third in the hammer throw, 2:09.2. And then Harrison Martinenko finished in as runner-up of the 1,500 meters, crossing with a PR of 3:44.39. Next up for Slew, they've got the A10 Outdoor Championships, May 4th and 5th at George Mason in Fairfax, Virginia.
Pete, I feel like we're going to talk about this next week. Did you see this story about the Slew soccer star that got evicted?
Okay, I saw the headline, but that's one I have not read yet just because
we're going to have to get into this next week.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. That's going to do it for the week in Billiken Sports. Thank you all so much for listening. And if you're still here, thank you especially for making it this long. That's going to do it. Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.